see, they looked at, well, you talk to the angels, so you're like somebody special, and they put me on a pedestal kind of thing. And it was, to me, it was weird. It was a weird feeling because I'm like, but I'm still a little bitch sometimes, It's like, I'm still human. And it was kind of a place that I had to really dial in on because I found it very offensive. But I also was told this is what the movie stars go through, where people will go through their trash. They will do this. If they put them on a pedestal, it's like they want to get something that belongs to you. And I'm like, okay, that's a little morbid, but okay, I understand that. So I took that as a message and a hidden meaning of I'm being prepared for something. And I need to be able to dial that in. The next thing is that there was, how do I hold my sanctuary if I go into this place where I'm going to be, out in the limelight, so to speak? How do I maintain my privacy? Because that became the next thing that came up, is that people wanted to be involved in my life, and I didn't want them involved in my life. They were putting in their nose where it shouldn't have been, and I wasn't talking about it, but they were like hearing rumors or they were making stuff up. And and my first reaction, of course, was always anger, because I'm a very private person. And so I had to learn how to set those boundaries, because that was something new for me at that point, was learning how to set boundaries. And so that became another thing of looking at, okay, well, here's another hidden meaning that came out of my life. There were lots of things that were coming out, and realizing that a lot of the traumas and the abuses and things that have happened in my life, they were all gifts. They were all gifts. I didn't see them as gifts at the time, and I was angry about them, but they were gifts because it started to define who I was. It helped me to dial in on my purpose in life, because things happen to us for a reason. We brought this in. We're not victims to any of this. As much as I wanted to argue this half my life, we're not victims to this. We created it, we decided this, and our guides are making sure that we're living through it. They're not going to give us anything more than we can't handle. So that hopeless place that I was in, I created that, and it was like, yeah, sure. And that's how you feel. But when you get on the other side of it, it's like, yeah, I get why I did this, because it was the fastest way to get to that next level. Because sometimes we can just kind of skate through life, but I wanted to get there faster. And so when you're asking to go faster, that's what they're going to do so you can accelerate your own personal growth. But you have to be prepared for it and have a support system too, because I had people that were supporting me, which helped. Not that they knew where I was at. I could just talk to them. They didn't have to answer me. They didn't have to say anything, because I was going to find my own answers.
I can see that. And establishing boundaries is very important. With regards to connecting with our guides, do you feel it's important to do this daily, or do you feel to choose a guide, or can you have several guides at once?
I have a gaggle of guides. Oh,
I like that, a gaggle. I love that.
I mean, I'll never forget, I went to a psychic years and years ago, and she was like, oh my God, how do you do this? I said, welcome to my world. I knew she was real. They were all talking at once to her,
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, I asked for help, but the thing is that at this point, they're there. And I know they're there, and and I do ask for help, because they're not going to help you unless you ask. But we're also at that place where we have to take responsibility for who we are. Yes, they're there to help. They're there to guide, their help, to, kind of steer you and all of that. And I do talk to them, and I'm still very connected with them. It's just not like what it used to be. But I just know they're there. And when they're not there, there's like this little trauma that comes in. And I have a colleague that she and we're so alike. It's like we talk each other's lives, right? And when they're not there, and we grumble at them, because we do, because we're allowed to. And people don't think you're allowed to not yell at the guides and spirit and everything else. And I do all of that, because sometimes, you're just angry and frustrated. And it's like, if you think this is so funny or this is easy, get your butt down here and live my life, because they're in spirit. They're not in this confined space that we're in for a physical body. They've got access to everything. So, sometimes it's like, okay, let's have a check-in, guys. but that's what keeps it, you have to keep it comical and light, because that's the one thing that they try to do for us is don't get too heavy. Because I'll never forget one time I was in Nevada, and I was like angry at my mother, and it was like, don't you die on me before I get this resolved, because she was sickly. And so my concern was that my goal was to resolve my relationship with my mother before she passed away. And I went to Nevada, and then I was like, didn't have any money, and we were 2 weeks behind on our rent, and I didn't have a job and all this stuff. And I remember hearing the Archangel Michael laughing in my head. And I was so mad at him, and I'm yelling at him, and he's laughing. And then all of a sudden, just like that, I got it. Lightened up. And within a week, I had a job, our rent was paid. We had more money coming in because I had to lighten it up. Quit taking your life so seriously. That's what it was teaching me. And so something like that, just yelling at him and he's laughing, and you're like, this is not funny. And then when I said that, I was like, oh my God, this is hysterical. I get this. I'm like this crazy banshee woman for what? Why? You really think they're going to abandon you? They didn't. I mean, you have to have a sense of humor. And that was probably one of the beginning lessons of learning to just, if you're laughing and dancing and having a good time, even if you don't feel like it, laugh and dance and have a good time, because you know what? Spirit loves when you're laughing.
Yeah, just not be too serious and and find moments of joy and kind of, yeah, because sometimes I can find myself, I get a bit serious about things as well. And I'm just like, you can kind of build things up in your mind, and then I kind of lighten up. That I think sometimes just like dancing around the room, or just having a laugh and a bit of humor about something can kind of switch our way of being. With regards to your book, Kathleen, or your books rather, because you said the second one's come out, how can our listeners get hold of them? What's the best way? Is it through your website?
Well, you have it. It's on Amazon. Both books are up on Amazon, so you can get a Kindle version or a paperback. You can also go to KathleenMFlanagan.com. They're there as well. And on that site, it has a list of everything else that I do. And
yeah, perfect. So what are the services, for the sake of our listeners, do you offer on your website?
I do have the coaching for the DreamBuilder. So if you wanted to start learning how to build the life of your dreams, part of it is this. I mean, you start with noticing what you're noticing, and notice what your discontent is, because those are the things that are letting you know that something needs to change, because, we get into a rut, we get into routines, with the kids, our jobs, our partners, and when you're noticing a discontent, that's our spirit saying we need a change. And so I teach you how to move through that and start building the life that you want, because we as humans know what we don't want. Most of us do not know what we want. That's a real big thing, because I remember the first time I ever heard somebody ask me, what do you want? And I'll never forget, I was on the highway driving, and I stopped dead in my tracks, and I'm like, I don't know what I want.